All right, hi everyone. Good day. What is this book? How is this book a real thing? How have I never heard of it? I don't understand. Anyway, hi, Natalie. Natalie, this is yours. This is chapter 4, Dealing with Dragons. Patricia Reed. It's called In Which Kazul Has a Dinner Party and Cimarine Makes Dessert. Oh my god, I want to know how to make Cherries Jubilee. Actually, let's back up. I don't think I've ever had Cherries Jubilee. What is with me in discovering food and fiction? Before it was chocolate pasta when I was reading Untold. Anyway, let's do this. Simri watched Thranduil go with feelings of great relief. Now she had at least a month to find a permanent way of discouraging the knights, for she was quite certain that Thranduil would spread the news of her injury. She decided to put her sign up anyway, just in case, and after looking a little, she found a scrubby tree beside the path and hung the sign on it. On her way back to Kazul's cave, she noticed that two pieces of the ledge were still invisible, and she was very careful about crossing them. She looked down once out of curiosity and was immediately sorry. She was not comfortable with the sight of her own feet firmly planted on nothing at all, and with the sharp, spiky tops of spruce trees in full view some 50 feet below. Kazul only arrived a few minutes after Cimarine herself. Cimarine was looking for some thread to mend her skirts, which had gotten torn and stained while she was climbing along the ledge, when she heard the unmistakable sounds of a dragon sliding into the main cave. Cimarine, Kazul's voice called back. Coming, Cimarine. I'm sorry. Cimarine, Kazul's voice called. Coming, Cimarine called back. Abandoning her search, she picked up her lamp and hurried out to greet Kazul. I'm glad to see you're still here, Kazul said mildly as Cimarine came into the large cave. Morans was quite sure you'd run off with a knight or a wizard. I couldn't make out for certain which. Is Morans the yellow-green dragon who wanted to eat me? Cimarine said. Because if he is, he's just trying to make trouble. I'm well aware of that, Kazul said with a sigh that sent a burnt bread smell halfway across the cave. That smells delicious. I love this. I like the smell of burnt bread. But things would be easier for me if you didn't provide him with any material to make trouble with. Exactly what happened? Well, Morin came to visit this afternoon, Submarine began. We were talking about all the interruptions I've been having, and she suggested putting up a sign. She explained why she had gone to put up the sign herself and told Kazul in detail about her meetings with the wizard, the dragon, and the prince. So Morwen was here. Kazul said. She sat back, the scales on her tail rattled comfortably against the floor. That simplifies matters. Did you bring the sign back with you? No, I found a chain hung up by the path, Simrine said, wondering what this was all about, in case Thranduil doesn't tell everyone about my ankle, after all. Better still, Kazul said and smiled fiercely, showing all her teeth. Morans is going to regret meddling. Meddling in what? Sorry. I got Morwen and Morans mixed up in my head for a second. Anyway, Morans is going to regret meddling. Meddling in what? My business? I'd like a little more of an explanation than that if you don't mind giving me one, Serene said with a touch of exasperation. Kazul looked startled and then thoughtful. Then she nodded. I keep forgetting that you're not as empty-headed as most princesses, she said. Sit down and make yourself comfortable. This may take a while. Ooh, juicy gossip from dragons. Oh, gossip from dragons. Simrine found a rock and sat on it. Kazul settled into a more restful position, folded her wings neatly along her back and began. It has to do with status. Dragons aren't required to have princesses, you see. Most of us don't. There are never enough to go around, and some of us prefer not to have to deal with the annoyances that come with them. Knights, Cimarine guessed. Among other things, Kazul said, nodding. So having a princess in residence has become a minor mark of high status among dragons. A minor mark? Kazul smiled. I'm afraid so. It's the equivalent of serving expensive imported fruit at dinner. It's a nice way of showing everyone how rich you are. But you could just make as big an impression by having some of those fancy pastries with the smooth glazed icing and sugar-spun roses. Is that what dragons eat? What is this? Dragons eating wonderful delicacies from around the world. I see. Cimarine did see, though she found herself wishing that Kazul had found something else to compare it to. The talk of dinner reminded her too much of Moran's repeated desire to eat her. Morans is young and not very bright, I'm afraid, Kazul said, almost as if she had read Simrine's mind. He seems to have the mistaken impression that if a princess behaves badly, it reflects on the dragon who captured her. Possibly it comes from his inability to keep any of his own princesses for more than a week. More than a week! Some of the lesser dragons were very snide about it when he lost his third one in a row. I believe she sneaked out while he was napping. I don't see how he can blame his princesses, Cimarine objected. I mean, if most princesses are unwilling, it must be fairly usual for them to try to get away. Of course, but Morans doesn't see it that way. He's been trying to catch someone else's princess in a similar foolishness for years, and he's quite sure he's finally done so. He's undoubtedly spreading the story of your escape far and wide at this very minute. Oh, dear, said Simrine. Kazul smiled again. Her teeth glittered silver in the lamplight. He'll look extremely foolish when it becomes obvious that you're still here. I'm guessing that's not going to go over well, either. Which is one reason I've asked a few of my friends to dinner tonight. You've what? Simrine said. All her worries about Morans were instantly replaced by worries about fixing dinner on short notice for for an unknown number of dragons. How many? What time will they be here? What are we going to put them all? Or where are we going to put them all? 6, around 8:30, in the banquet cave. And you won't be doing anything but dessert. I've already arranged for the rest of the meal. Oh, well, that's helpful. What is the rest of the meal? Arranged with whom? Ballamore, the giantess. What? What? There's giantess. That means there's giants in here. In the story, I mean. She loaned me the cauldron of plenty that she uses when her 12-headed son-in-law drops in for dinner unannounced. 12-headed. 12-headed. It'll handle most things, but all it can produce in the way of dessert is burned mint custard and sour cream and onion ice cream. Sour cream and onion. I'm perplexed by this sour cream and onion ice cream. Part of me is like, that's revolting, and then part of me is like, that's so revolting, it's delicious. Okay, anyway. Said Simrine, I see your problem. Exactly. Can you manage? Not if you want Cherry's Jubilee, Simrine said, frowning. I haven't got a pot large enough to make 7 dragons worth of Cherry's Jubilee. Would chocolate mousse do? I can make 2 or 3 batches, and there should be time for all of them to chill if you're not starting until 8. Chocolate mousse will be fine, Kazula assured her. Come along and I'll show you where to bring it. I don't know. How do they use forks? Do dragons use spoons and forks? But they have the little T-Rex arms. How do they do this? I don't understand. Do they have a little T-Rex arms? Now I'm just thinking of the strong bad dragon. They got big buff arms. One of them's going out back. Okay, anyway. Simrine picked up a lamp and followed Kazula into the public tunnels that surrounded Kazula's private caves. She was a little surprised, but when she saw the size of the banquet cave, she understood. It was enormous. 50 or 60 dragons, perhaps even 100 of them, would fit into it quite comfortably. Obviously, it had to be a public room. There simply wasn't enough space under the mountains of mourning for every dragon to have a cave this size. Kazula made sure Simrine could find her way to the banquet cave without help, and then left her in the kitchen to melt slabs of chocolate and whip gallons of cream for the mousse. She has to make giant-sized portions of everything. By the time she was finished, she was hot and tired, and all she really wanted to do was take a nap. But Kazula was expecting her to serve the mousse, and Simrine wasn't about to appear before all these dragons in her old clothes, with sweaty straggles of hair sticking her neck and a smear of chocolate across her nose. So instead of napping, she pumped a cauldron of water. Pumped it. They have running water. Heated it on the kitchen fire and took a bath. Once she was clean, she felt much better. She checked to make sure the mousse was setting properly, then went into her own room to decide what she should wear. Fortunately, she was afraid she didn't have much choice. The wardrobe in her bedroom was full of neat, serviceable dresses suitable for cooking in or rummaging through treasure, but the only dressy clothes she had were the ones she had arrived in. She got them out of the back of the wardrobe and found to her dismay that the hem of the gown was badly stained from mud from her long walk. There was no time to clean it. She would have to wear one of the everyday dresses. With a sigh, Simrine turned back to the wardrobe and opened it once more to look for the nicest of the ordinary clothes. She gasped in surprise. The hangers were now full... What? The hangers were now full of the most beautiful gowns she'd ever seen. How... Is it a TARDIS? If it was a TARDIS... I don't even want to entertain that thought. Some were silk, some were velvet, some were heavy brocade, and some were layers of feather, or feather-like gauze. Some were embroidered with gold or silver, and some were sewn with jewels. Well, of course, Simrine said aloud after a stunned moment. What do you mean, of course? What? Why would a dragon have an ordinary wardrobe? Of course it's magic. Sure, okay. What's in it depends on what I'm looking for. One of the wardrobe doors waggled slightly, and its hinges creaked in smug agreement. What? Simrine blinked at it, then shook herself and began looking through the gowns. She chose one of red velvet, heavily embroidered with gold, and found matching slippers in the bottom of the obliging wardrobe. She let her black hair hang in loose waves nearly to her feet. Nearly to her feet? That's a lot of hair. And even dug her crown out of the back door where she'd stuffed it on her first night. She finished getting ready a few minutes early, feeling very cheerful. She went down to the kitchen to fetch the mousse. It took Simrine 4 trips to get the mousse down to the serving area just off the banquet cave. A dragon-sized serving was a little over a bucketful. And she could barely manage to carry 2 at a time. When everything was ready, she stood in the serving area and waited nervously for Kazula to ring for dessert. She could hear the muffled booming of the dragon's voices through the heavy oak door, but she could not make out what any of them were saying. The bell rang at last, summoning Simrine to serve dessert. She carried the moose into the banquet cavern, 2 servings at a time, and set it in front of Kazul and her guests. The dragons were crouched around a shoulder-high slab of white stone. Simrine had to be very careful about lifting the moose up onto it. Fortunately, she didn't have to wonder which dragon to serve first. She could tell which dragons were most important from their places at the table. She made a silent apology to her protocol teacher, whom had insisted that she learn about seating arrangements. Protocol had been one of the princess lessons Simrine hated most. But it's interesting because it's paying off now, but not in a way that's like demeaning to her because she wants to do this. Anyway, as she set the last serving in front of Kazul, one of the other dragons said in a disgruntled and vaguely familiar voice, "I see the rumors are wrong again, Kazul. Or did you have to go after her and holler back the way the rest of us do?" Simrine turned angrily, but before she could say anything, a large gray-green dragon on the other side of the stone slab said, "Nonsense, Warog. Girls got more sense than that. You shouldn't listen to gossip. Next thing you know, you'll be chasing after that imaginary wizard Garim's been on about." Simrine recognized the speaker at once. He was Roxime, the elderly dragon she'd given 4 of her handkerchiefs to. "I suppose it was that idiot Moran's again trying to cause trouble," a purple-green dragon said with bored distaste. "Someone should do something about him." "Kazul still hasn't answered my question," Warog said, and his tail lashed once like the tail of an angry cat. "And I'd like her to do so if the rest of you will stop sidetracking the conversation." "Here now," Roxime said indignantly. That's a bit strong, Warog. Too strong, if you ask me." "I didn't," Warog said. "I asked Kazul. And I'm still waiting." Oh my god. Sassy dragons. "I'm very pleased with my princess," Kazul said mildly. "And no, I didn't have to holler back, as you would realize if you'd given the matter a little thought. But does your princess normally leave 7 servings of chocolate mousse in the kitchen when she runs away?" "Hear, hear," Roxime said. Simri noted with interest that Warog's scales had turned an even brighter shade of green than normal, and that he was starting to smell faintly of brimstone. "One of these days, you'll go too far, Kazul," he said. "You started it," Kazul pointed out. She turned to the Grey Dragon. "What's this about Garim and a wizard, Roxime?" "You haven't heard?" Roxime said, sounding surprised. "Garim's been raving about it for weeks. Somebody snuck into her cave and stole a book from her library." Okay, where did the dragons get the books? Do they steal them? Are they collectors? Do they buy them? How does this society work? Okay, no traces, but for some reason she's positive it was a wizard. Achoo! Roxime sneezed, emitting a ball of flame that just missed hitting his bowl of mousse. "Gives me an allergy attack just thinking about it." "If it wasn't a wizard, who was it?" the dragon at the far end of the table asked. "Could have been anybody, an elf, a dwarf, even a human," Roxime responded. "No reason to think it was a wizard just because Garim didn't catch him in the act. Now with the amount of time she spends away from home." "Which book did she lose?" said the thin, brownish-green dragon next to Kazul. "What does it matter?" the purple-green dragon muttered. "Some history or other. And that's another thing. What would a wizard want with a history book? No, Garim's making a lot of fuss over a common thief. That's what I say." It's because it was Bilbo. "It could have been a wizard," said the dragon at the far end. "Who knows why they want the things they want?" "Ridiculous," Roxime replied with vigor. "A wizard wouldn't dare come through this part of the mountains. They know what we do to them, by George. Beg pardon," he added to the silver-green dragon next to him, who appeared to have been rather shocked by his language. Is it the by George thing? I don't understand. "I'm afraid you're wrong there," Kazul said. "Simmarine met one today less than a 2-minute flight from my cave." "What? What?" Roxime said. "You sure?" That's done it." The purple-green dragon rolled his head in an irritated gesture, so that his scales made a scratching noise as they rubbed together. "You'll never get him to quit talking about it now." "Quite sure," Simmarine assured Roxime, after glancing at Kazul to make sure she was expected to answer Roxime's question for herself. "He made 2 bits of the ledge I was standing on turn invisible, so I would think it wasn't safe to keep going." "Certainly sounds like a wizard to me," the dragon at the far end commented. "What did he look like?" asked the silver-green dragon. Simrine described the wizard as well as she could, and then added, "He said his name was Zeminar." "Seminar? That's ridiculous," Warog snorted. "Seminar was elected head of the Society of Wizards last year. He wouldn't waste his time playing games with somebody's princess. Not unless he had a great deal to gain by it." "What would he gain?" I lost my place. The thin dragon said in a thoughtful tone. She turned her head and looked speculatively at Simrine. "Such as," Warog said. He waited a moment, but no one answered. "No, I can't believe it was Zeminar. The girls made a mistake, that's all." "Perhaps it wasn't him," Simrine said, holding on to her temper as hard as she could. "I've never met Zeminar, so I wouldn't know, but that's who he said he was." "And wouldn't it be amusing if she were right?" the purple-green dragon said, showing some interest in the proceedings for the first time. I don't see that it matters, the Silver Green Dragon said. The most important thing is that he was a wizard poking around smack in the middle of our mountains. What are we going to do about it? Burn him? Roast him alive? You're dragons. Why are you're dragons? Unless there's something I don't know about between dragons and wizards. Anyway, I'm going to make another video and keep reading.